Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel today. My name is Paul. As most of you will know, if you don't, I have been living and working abroad for more than 19 years. And this video today is going to detail a huge part of that. I'm going to make a 5-part series. This video is part number 1, and it's going to detail my employment journey throughout South Korea. Now, if you have dreams of living and working abroad, if you're sick and tired of your country right now, or if you're just looking for a change, this video will be very helpful for you. So stick around and I hope you learn something from it. All right, so let's begin. We're going to go all the way back to the autumn of 2007, okay? Now, I had just returned from Vancouver, Canada after 1 year on a working holiday visa. And the biggest thing that I got from that 1 year away was the travel bug, right? I lost connection with my home in Scotland. I didn't feel comfortable at home anymore. I came back to Scotland and I had this want to go somewhere else. Now, during my year in Canada, like I've mentioned in previous videos, I met a bunch of Korean people. They were very, very nice and very helpful. And I managed to build a friendship there. That was the biggest reason why I chose to go to South Korea next on my journey. Now, I applied to get a teaching position. I had absolutely no interest in teaching at that time. My educational background was in business, not teaching. But in Korea, all you needed was a bachelor's degree minimum in any subject and a clean criminal record check. And luckily for me, I had both of those. So let's fast forward to October in 2007. I'm arriving in South Korea. I was bright-eyed, I was bushy-tailed, but I was completely and utterly green, okay? I was so inexperienced, it was unbelievable. But I was full of life and full of adventure and also full of kind of hope, for the future. It was my first ever time in Asia. And if you've been to a new continent before, you probably relate to this. You just breathe it in, right? And you kind of say to yourself, oh my goodness, Paul, you're actually in Asia. That's how I felt. It was amazing, amazing feeling. Now, if you want to teach and live, work in South Korea, you're going to probably come into the English teaching realm, okay, sector. And at the bottom, there are things called hagwons. Now, a younger hagwon is Korean for English Academy. That's where I went to when I first came to South Korea. Now, my 5-part series is going to detail my climb up the ladder to where I am today, which is pretty close to the top. But starting at the English hagwon is definitely no joke, okay? So I was completely excited, but totally inexperienced, and I was open-minded. After my year in Canada, I was definitely up for a challenge, and I didn't want to stay in Scotland. So yeah, I was really, really excited. Now, the only thing that I knew about Korea were the Korean friends that I met in Vancouver, okay? So I didn't know anything about the culture. I didn't know much about the history. I knew a little bit about the football with Park Ji-sung. Let's move on to the brutal reality of hagwon life. Now, in this channel, I'm going to speak straight from the heart. I'm going to try to explain what I've seen through my eyes and through my footsteps, my shoes. So I'll just give you my personal opinion on all of the experiences that I went through. A hagwon is brutal, okay? It is basically at the bottom of the ladder. You are inexperienced. The owners of the hagwon know that. And so, in the most part, they will take advantage of that and take advantage of you. That is reality. However, it is paid pretty well, okay? And in my opinion, it's a fantastic chance to learn a new culture, to travel Asia, and to take a year out in your life. So I think it's got more positives than negatives. Now, the schedule was pretty brutal, okay? It's 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, and you only get about 2 weeks paid vacation a year. Now, sick days are impossible, okay? They're frowned upon. If you were to take a sick day in a hagwon, in the most part, you're probably going to lose your job in the near future because there are many other teachers waiting to come in. And in Korea, they don't believe in sick days. If you're sick, you should be coming into work. So my schedule was teaching kindergarten students in the morning for 3 hours. And then after a very short lunch break, it was teaching elementary classes all through until about 7:30 p.m. So I was going from about 9:30 in the morning till 7:30, 5 days a week. It was quite the experience. Now you're flung into a classroom, you've got no skills, your background's not in teaching, and you're supposed to learn and be pretty much perfect from day one. Mistakes are not welcome in Korea, and they're also frowned upon, just like sick days, but also they're going to hold that against you If you make a mistake, they won't forget it. And if you make it again, it's even worse. Now, I made quite a few mistakes in my opening few weeks in South Korea in the Hagwon, and I really, really felt like I was on the edge of losing my job. That's how it felt to me. So I quickly learned that it's really, really important that you're not the new guy. When someone else comes in and takes, the new guy place or new girl place, and you're not the new person anymore, all the focus goes to them. So that's what saved me in my opening 3 months in the Hagwon. I was making mistakes. I was trying to be better. I was trying to be perfect, but nobody's perfect. But luckily for me, a new teacher came in and started making more mistakes than me. And so the focus quickly went away. It's an intense environment, okay? The workload is heavy, the workload is intense, and you're expected to be on your game pretty much 24/7, even after your hours are finished. Now, the way I looked at this 1 year in the Hagwon was an apprenticeship. If you can imagine, you want to be an electrician, a plumber, a joiner, whatever. This 1 year for me was my apprenticeship for teaching English abroad. Okay, so I treated this as a huge learning experience, and no matter how hard this was going to be, Paul, you're going to do it. And no matter how many bumps in the road, you're going to get over them, because if you don't, and if you quit this, you're never going to learn in your life. And so that was my inspiration for, trying to finish this 1 year contract. I should have known the brutality of this job by my very first experience when I arrived in Korea. The owner of the Hagwon came to pick me up at the airport, took me to my apartment. Now, bearing in mind, I'd just gone off on a huge flight from Glasgow to Dubai, Dubai to Seoul. I was exhausted. I was jet lagged. I wasn't myself. And upon arriving to my new apartment, the wife of the owner, who is also one of the owners, was waiting for me outside my apartment door with a big bunch of English textbooks for teaching the next day. So she sat there for about 30 or 40 minutes in my apartment and tried to talk over these books when I was completely out of it. So it was a crazy experience, but that was a sign of things to come. Let me quickly tell you about a big scare that I had. Okay, it was only my second night in Korea. Now, if you join a Hagwon, in the most part, you're going to be surrounded by young people. Okay, I was 25. Most of the people around me, the foreign teachers, were about 25 to 28. Now, bearing in mind, we get a free apartment. Okay, so there's no rent. You're young. You're getting paid pretty well. So it kind of feels like you're rich. That's how I felt at that time. I had no kids. I wasn't married. Now, I went out drinking on my second night. I'm not a huge drinker, okay, but I felt it was important to try and socialize when I arrived. And there was a good group of people, not only in my school, but around the area that I worked in different schools. And I thought, you know what, it would make sense for me to go out and meet people. So I did. But that night, I got completely blind drunk, okay? And it was a huge mistake because I don't drink much. And today, I hardly ever drink. And this is probably one of the reasons. The night started off pretty well. I was eating live squid, which I didn't enjoy. But I thought I'll try it. And it's moving on the plate. So I took a bit and swallowed it without chewing it. Never tried that again. And I ended up in a nightclub where I was drinking something called soju. Soju is a really, really hard liquor here in South Korea. It's very popular because it's very cheap. But in my opinion, it's really nasty and it's dangerous and it blows your mind. And that's exactly what happened to me. I drank one bottle of this stuff. And all I remember was being outside. I was cold. I couldn't speak and I couldn't see. I could only hear. And luckily for me, I had my wallet in my pocket with my address that I wrote down, before coming, so I knew my address. And I was saved. Now, don't forget, folks, in one of the previous videos, I spoke of how I met a guy in Vancouver that took me to a hostel which changed my life, right? Well, fast forward, okay, like a year and a half later in Korea, I was taken home in a taxi. That's all I remember. I had no money. I just remember a girl's voice. I think she was Korean, but she was speaking in English. And she took me all the way back to my apartment door, got me in my apartment, and she left. And I don't know who she was. I couldn't see nothing. I could only hear, and I couldn't speak. That's how drunk I was. Now, bearing in mind, I had to work the next day, okay? So I woke up the next morning to bang, bang, bang at my door, and I had no idea what time it was. I had no idea where I was. I opened the door. The head teacher of the foreign teachers in my school was at my door saying, Paul, you're 1 hour and 30 minutes late. You need to get to school. You can imagine the panic for me. It's only my third ever day in South Korea and I'm already, late for work and drunk and hungover. My eyes were bright red. Okay, I had a crazy headache. I felt terrible. I got to the school, and as I was walking in with the foreign head teacher, we decided on a plan. Hey, Paul, you're jet lagged. That's what you say. And so I walked in, eyes still a bit red, and I said, I'm really, really sorry. I'm jet lagged from the flights. And the owners were like, it's okay, Paul, it's okay. And they took me into the classroom. And wow, what a scare. Can you imagine losing my job after 3 days? It would have been a nightmare, right? But luckily, I was okay. But again, a shout out to that stranger. In my life, I seem to have been helped in ways by people that I don't even know. So let's go to social life, okay? It's the same kind of topic. It is fantastic to meet people if you come into a Hagwon, because in the most part, you're going to be surrounded by foreign teachers, right? And it was no different in my school. They were from America primarily, because at that time in 2007, the English American accent was demanded. Anyway, in those days, it was mostly Americans and Canadians, and that was what it was like for me in my school. I met some great people, and all around about the same age. You know, there was parties going on, there was drinking going on, there was pool competitions, there was Xbox games every night, eating pizzas, etc. It was so cool, and at that time, I was a very, very sociable person, right? I was young, I was open-minded. I also still enjoyed my lone wolf moments in those days, but again, I was definitely young and free-spirited too. It was a fun time, but it was exhausting, right? I was burning the candle at both ends. I was working hard and intense. I was also partying, social life hard and intense. So it was a tough year, but when you're 25 years old, you can do it. You can handle it. There's no challenge. Could I do it now? Absolutely not. Would I want to do it? No, I would not. Is Hagwon a good start for new teachers? Yes. In my opinion, it is the best start that you're going to get. Is it brutal? Yes. But hey, life is brutal, folks. You know, you have to wake up sometimes and just smell the coffee. Life is no joke. You're going to have to take a difficult path sometimes in your life, like I've spoken about before, to improve yourself and see who you really are. So after that year, I got a good glimpse of who I am, and I was a person that wasn't going to quit. It's good for a structured experience. You're going to get a lot of advice. You're going to be molded in a certain way, but also you're able to deal with all different age groups of students. You're able to sort out your classroom management skills. You're able to socialize, build a network. So I think it's a great experience for you if you're interested. The pay is pretty good, okay? In my opinion, when I joined in 2007, I had a lot of money left over each month after paying bills because I had no rent, right? The rent is completely free. The social scene was great. So you're going to have a nice time of, you know, going out drinking, talking, making friends. And it's great. You'll meet different people from different countries. Now, there's high expectations, like I mentioned. There's long hours. There's difficult children that you'll have to deal with, you know, spoiled kids and behavioral issues, but nothing new, right, in this world. It's high pressure. The only problem is in this country, and it's part of the social and cultural fabric, you know, mistakes are not welcome and they're looked down upon. And that was no different for me. I just try to improve myself, right? And if you make a mistake, try not make it again. But hey, nobody's perfect, and that's the way I live my life. Like I said before, just hope that a newer teacher comes into the school. That's my advice, because then the focus is away from you. Now, at the end of my year, it was kind of like a relief. I was so relieved to finish the first year in South Korea because it was brutal. I was actually really exhausted. I was offered from the school a pay increase to re-sign for another year. I was going to be given more bonus payment, which is basically cash in hand at the end of the year. But I refused it. I didn't want to stay because I thought to myself that 1 year was great. You know, I've learned a lot, but that's it. You know, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it. Yeah, money's part of it, but I'm doing it to improve myself and see where I want to go in the future. And I wanted to improve myself if I was going to stay in South Korea. But first, I wanted to go back home and see my parents because I wanted to recharge the batteries. I wanted to spend some of that money that I saved up, which I did. And yeah, I felt 1 year was enough time because if you're doing an apprenticeship, you don't want to be doing it again and again and again because there's only so much you can learn. You're only going to learn truly when you're put into the deep end. And after 3 months, I felt like I was back into the shallow end. So it was off to the deep end again, folks. In part number 2 coming up, I'm going to detail my second journey in South Korea, which was a huge improvement for me. I was off to the Korean public school. Thanks for listening, folks. I hope you learned something from this. This is a true first-hand experience. Drop a comment below if you've had some experience, you know, living, working abroad. What did you do? Are you still doing it? And if you're interested in Korea, I'll put a link in the video description of the exact website that I used to get my first job. All right, take care, everybody. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.